The galaxy had many worlds, many skies, and countless living creatures. Some were small and weak, some were tall and strange, and some were dangerous in their own way. But among all these, there was one species that believed itself to be greater than every other: the Zitheri. The Zitheri were hunters. From the moment they were born, their lives were shaped by hunger, speed, and instinct. They had long limbs that could leap across rocks, sharp senses that could track even the faintest sound, and eyes that could pierce through the dark. Their claws were curved, their teeth sharp, and their minds clever enough to build tools that made their hunting easier. They were proud of this. They were not just hunters of their own world. They were hunters of the stars. The first time the Zitheri discovered spaceflight, they saw it as nothing more than a new hunting ground. They did not see the stars as distant mysteries or as places to build homes. No, for them the stars were doors to endless prey. Their ships were not made to carry trade goods or peaceful travelers. Their ships were made to land, to track, and to hunt. They became a shadow that fell over many planets. On one world, they hunted giant, armored beasts with scales thick as stone. On another, they tracked creatures with wings that glowed like fire. Some species fought back and some ran, but none survived for long. Everywhere they went, the Zitheri left silence. Forests grew still, oceans grew empty, skies lost their flyers. The Zitheri would leave only after the thrill was gone, when there was nothing left that could challenge them. For the Zitheri, this was not cruelty. This was life. It was who they were. They called themselves the predators of all realms, and no other name seemed to fit them better. But over time, something began to change among them. At first, they did not notice it. The hunts were successful, the kills easy, the prey plentiful. But as centuries passed, young Zitheri began to whisper. They whispered of a strange emptiness, a hollow feeling. When they killed, there was no spark. When they chased, there was no fear. And when they stood over the defeated creatures of another world, there was no joy in their victory. The elders of the Zitheri remembered a different time. They remembered the early hunts when danger was real. They remembered when prey could strike back, when a single mistake could mean the end. They remembered a word that the young ones no longer understood well: fear. Fear had once been the heart of the hunt. Without fear, there was no challenge. Without challenge, there was no meaning. The young hunters did not know this feeling, and they longed for it without knowing why. They began to call the hunts empty games. They trained, they hunted, they traveled across stars. But inside they carried boredom. The elders grew worried. What would become of the predators of all realms if the very essence of the hunt disappeared from their blood? And then, something happened that would change everything. It began as another ordinary expedition. A fleet of Zitheri ships moved across space, their engines leaving trails of light behind them. The hunters inside sharpened their weapons and spoke of what new creatures they might find. Their scanners searched for habitable planets, for worlds full of life. They had done this countless times before, but this time the scanners found something unusual. At first it seemed like any other world. A sphere of blue, white, and green. Oceans covered most of its surface. Clouds floated above. Continents spread out like patches of color. To the hunters it looked ordinary, almost too ordinary. Yet the scanners showed strange numbers. The life signs were not weak or simple. The planet carried layers of life, from the smallest crawling things to the largest giants. It was a world overflowing with living strength. The hunters were curious, but what caught their attention most was a single species among all the rest. A species that had spread across every corner of the planet. A species that built cities, fires, and tools. The scanners showed they were fragile compared to many others: no claws, no armor, no venom. Yet somehow they thrived everywhere. The elders looked closely and felt something they had not felt in many generations: interest. Perhaps, one of them said, this world will bring the feeling back. The younger hunters laughed. To them, the humans looked small and weak, hardly worth their attention. They will scatter, they said. They will run like all the others. But the elders were not so sure. The fleet began to descend toward the blue planet. From orbit they saw wide forests, endless seas, mountains that cut into the sky. The more they looked, the more they felt a strange weight. This world was alive in a way others were not. It pulsed with energy, as if every tree, every wave, and every breath carried a secret. The hunters did not yet know what waited for them. For them, it was simply the start of another hunt. But for the first time in ages, something stirred inside their hearts. Something quiet, something almost forgotten. It was not joy. It was not pride. It was a whisper of the old word. It was fear, hidden deep in their blood waiting to awaken. The Zitheri fleet floated above the blue planet, their black ships gliding silently in orbit. Through their glass panels, the hunters stared at Earth. To their eyes it was both beautiful and strange. The white clouds swirled like paint across oceans that glittered under sunlight. The continents stretched wide, full of green and brown, as though the land itself was alive. The young hunters were restless. They sharpened their weapons, clicked their claws against the metal floors, and asked when the hunt would begin. To them, this was just another world, another conquest, another place to leave empty when they were done. But the elders sat in silence. Their golden eyes studied the planet more carefully. Something about Earth unsettled them, though they could not yet name what it was. Arrival when the ships finally pierced the atmosphere, the hunters felt the air of Earth for the first time. It was thick, rich, and full of scents. Every breath carried a storm of life: flowers, soil, water, animals. To the Zitheri, whose senses were sharper than any humans, it was overwhelming. They could smell danger, but they could not tell where it came from. It was everywhere. The ships landed in different parts of the world to explore. Some touched down in deep forests where green stretched endlessly. Some landed near mountains where the wind cut sharp and cold. Others came near vast oceans where waves rose and fell like breathing giants. At first, they did not meet humans. Instead, they met the wild. The first signs in the forest of South America, one hunting group stepped into the Amazon. They expected easy prey, creatures that would scatter before them. But the forest was different. The air was heavy with the sound of wings, the call of hidden animals, the whisper of countless insects. Every step made the hunters feel as though eyes were watching them. One of the younger Zitheri bent low to drink from a river. In the next moment, a shadow burst from the water, jaws like knives, teeth closing fast. A crocodile, silent and patient, had waited for hours. The hunter leapt back just in time, his claws slicing air, not flesh. The animal sank again into the river, vanishing as if it had never been there. The hunters laughed at first, but the elders did not. "Did you see its patience?" one of them said quietly. "It did not rush, it waited. That is not simple prey." In Africa, another group entered the savannah. They saw herds of animals, tall-necked giants and horned runners. But soon they noticed the lions. Golden, silent, moving like shadows in the grass. The Zitheri could smell the intent in them, the way they circled their prey, the way they worked together. For the first time in many hunts, the predators from the stars found themselves staring into the eyes of predators from Earth. And those eyes did not look away. In the oceans, another group of Zitheri dived to explore. The water was darker than they expected, full of unseen life. One of them swam deeper, chasing a school of shining fish. Then the sea grew quiet. Out of the blue darkness, something massive appeared. A whale, its size greater than any ship they had ever landed. Its song shook the water around them, deep and endless. The Zitheri froze. For all their pride, they felt small, like dust beside a mountain. The encounter, it was not long before the Zitheri finally saw humans. In the forests, they found villages, small homes of wood and stone, people gathered around fires. At first, the hunters thought the humans looked weak. No claws, no sharp teeth, no natural armor. The young ones laughed, saying, "These are no predators. They are fragile prey." But then they watched more closely. The humans worked together. They built tools from stone and metal. They set traps for animals much stronger than themselves. They moved in groups, speaking with signals, planning each step. They carried fire in their hands, controlling it as if it were their servant. And most of all, when the humans noticed the strange hunters in the shadows, they did not run. They watched back. The Zitheri felt a strange shiver then. Prey was supposed to fear. Prey was supposed to hide. But these humans only narrowed their eyes and tightened their hands on their tools. They stood as though ready to fight something greater than themselves. The elders warning around the fire of their ship that night. The young hunters argued. "They are weak," they said. "It will be easy." But the elders were troubled. "Do not judge too quickly," one elder said. "You saw the eyes of the lions. You saw the patience of the river beasts. You felt the song of the sea giants. And you saw these humans who do not run. This world is different. It does not give up its life so easily." The young laughed again, but deep inside, they could not forget the way the humans had looked at them. The test of the hunt, The next day, the hunters tried to test the humans. A group of Scifi followed a band of hunters from a human tribe. The humans were tracking a large animal through the forest, a jaguar that had taken one of their goats. The Scifi expected the humans to stumble or fail, but they did not. The humans moved with silence, their eyes sharp, their steps careful. They left marks on trees so they would not lose their path. They set traps along the way, ropes hidden under leaves, stones balanced to fall. They spoke in whispers, but every word was part of a plan. When the jaguar finally appeared, it struck fast and hard, but the humans struck faster. They did not fight with strength alone. They fought with knowledge, with teamwork, with patience. The animal fell not because the humans were stronger, but because they were smarter. The Scifi, watching from the shadows, felt a chill. They could see it now. These humans were not weak. They were something else entirely. A strange feeling. That night, when the hunters returned to their ship, silence filled the air. The young ones no longer laughed. The elders sat with heavy thoughts. "What is this?" one of the younger hunters asked. "They should have been prey, but they are not." "They are hunters," an elder answered. "But not like us. They do not need claws or fangs. Their minds are their weapons. Their unity is their strength." The room grew quiet. The hunters looked at each other, and for the first time in many lifetimes they felt something stir inside them. It was the old feeling, the one they had almost forgotten. It was not joy. It was not boredom. It was something far sharper. It was fear. The blue world awakens. The Scifi now knew the truth. This planet was alive in ways no other world had ever been. Its creatures were hunters, each in their own way. The rivers hunted, the forests hid dangers, the skies circled with eyes, and the oceans carried giants. And above all, humans stood at the center of it. Fragile yet unbroken, weak yet powerful. For the first time, the predators of all realms had found a place where they were not the only hunters. They had found a planet that looked back at them, and Earth was not afraid. The Scifi hunters had always believed they were the highest form of predator. Every world they had visited had confirmed this belief. Beasts with fangs, wings, shells, or venom had all fallen before them, but on Earth their belief began to shake. The humans did not run like prey. They did not collapse under fear. They watched, they planned, and they acted with something the Scifi had never faced before: strategy. The shadow of the Forest One hunting group entered a dense forest in Asia. They had followed human tracks for hours, expecting to corner them easily. But the tracks were strange, too many, too scattered. At times they led in circles. At other times they vanished completely. The Scifi grew frustrated. They were experts in pursuit, yet here the prey was guiding them without even being seen. Then, without warning, a loud crack echoed through the trees. A heavy branch fell, narrowly missing one of the hunters. Another step forward, and a pit opened beneath their feet, covered in leaves deep and sharp with wooden spikes. The Scifi leapt back, realizing too late that they were not following prey. They were walking into traps. From the shadows, human eyes watched silently. The humans did not need to fight directly. They let the forest itself become their weapon. The hunters hissed in anger, but deep inside a new thought came to them. These creatures are not prey. They are hunters like us. The frozen tundra far to the north, another Scifi group landed in the icy lands where snow covered everything. They thought this cold world would be easier. But here too the humans surprised them. The hunters saw figures moving across the snow, small, wrapped in thick fur, carrying tools. The Scifi followed, expecting to close in quickly, but the humans did not stumble in the cold. They moved across the ice with skill, using sleds pulled by dogs, gliding faster than the hunters could run. The hunters tried to chase, but the ice betrayed them. Their claws slipped. Their steps broke the frozen surface, and the cold air burned their lungs. Meanwhile, the humans thrived. They knew the land, the snow, the wind. They worked with their animals, not against them. When night fell, the hunters watched the humans build fire from nothing, warming themselves while the Scifi shivered in the dark. The elders whispered among themselves. "This is not weakness," they admitted. "This is mastery. They have conquered the cold itself." The ocean's lesson in the Pacific Ocean, another group of Scifi tested their skills in water. They had always believed themselves strong swimmers, their sleek bodies built for speed. But the humans here were fishermen. They went out in boats made from wood and ropes, simple yet clever. At first, the hunters mocked them. But when they watched closer, they saw how humans understood the sea. They knew the tides, the waves, the fish. They worked with nets, spears, and patience. One Zitheri dove into the water to prove himself greater. But the ocean did not care for pride. Currents pulled him down. Waves slammed him against rocks. The humans from their small boats rescued their own people with calm skill. They had no fear of the ocean. They had lived with it for generations. The Zitheri returned to shore humbled. The ocean, which had seemed like a path of conquest, became a reminder. This planet does not bow to hunters. The test of fire. The turning point came when one group of hunters decided to test humans directly. They stepped into a village at dusk, appearing from the shadows like they always did. The humans saw them, tall, clawed, glowing-eyed figures. Any other world would have screamed and fled, but the humans did not run. Instead, the villagers stood together. They carried spears, stones, and fire. They did not have the size or the strength of the Zitheri, but they had courage. The hunters hissed, expecting fear. What they saw instead was defiance. The humans raised their torches high, forming a circle of firelight. Fire had always frightened beasts on other worlds, but these humans held it in their hands, unafraid. The flames danced in their eyes, not as fear but as power. The Zitheri paused. For the first time, they did not step forward. Something inside them stirred again. Something old. Something sharp. It was the memory of when they had once been hunted long ago on their own world. The feeling was fear. The elders' realization. That night, the elders of the Zitheri gathered. Their voices were low, heavy with the truth they could no longer ignore. These humans, one elder said, are not prey. They are not even like us. They are something beyond. They have no claws, another argued. They have their minds, the elder replied. They have patience, unity, and the will to survive. They turn the world itself into their weapon. Even the beasts of their forests, their skies, and their seas move with them. Have you not seen how wolves run at their side? How eagles circle above them? How dogs pull their sleds through ice? They are not alone. The planet itself seems to fight for them. The room grew silent. Each hunter thought of what they had seen. The crocodile's patience, the lion's eyes, the whale's song, the human's fire. Everywhere they looked, Earth was not weak. Earth was strong, and at its center stood humans, fragile but unbroken, the return of fear. The younger hunters struggled with the truth. They had been raised to believe nothing could stand against them. Yet here, on this single blue world, everything seemed to challenge them. One young hunter finally whispered, "We were wrong. They are the true apex." The elders nodded. "Yes," they said. "And the strangest thing is this. They do not hunt for pride like we do. They hunt to live, to protect, to endure. That is why they are stronger. That is why they are feared." The hunters sat in silence, their golden eyes reflecting the firelight inside their ship. In that silence, each of them felt it clearly now, the old feeling they had lost long ago. Their hearts beat faster, their bodies tensed. Their breath grew sharper. It was fear, pure and undeniable. And with fear came something else, respect. The blue world watches. The Zitheri began to withdraw to their ships, unsettled by what they had learned. But even as they rose into the skies, they felt the eyes of Earth upon them. The forests, the oceans, the mountains, the villages, everything watched. And most of all, the humans watched. Not with fear, not with hatred, but with calm, steady eyes that seemed to say, "We are here. We will not bow." The Zitheri had traveled across countless stars, hunted countless worlds, and defeated countless creatures. Yet now, for the first time in ages, they had found a place they could not conquer. A place where they were not the hunters. A place where they were the ones being studied, measured, and perhaps hunted in return. And deep inside, they knew the truth. The predators who had feared nothing had finally met Earth's apex predators. The Zitheri hunters had always seen themselves as separate from the worlds they conquered. They entered, they hunted, they left. Every planet was nothing more than a stage for their power. But Earth was different. The longer they stayed, the more they saw. And the more they saw, the less they understood. The web of life in the jungles. They watched how monkeys swung from tree to tree, warning each other of danger with sharp cries. They saw ants, so small and fragile, building vast colonies that spread underground like hidden cities. They noticed how birds flew in patterns across the sky, turning and twisting as one. Everywhere they looked, Earth was not a collection of separate creatures. It was a network, a great web. Each part moved with another, each life connected with the next. The elders whispered to each other as they studied this truth. "We have hunted many worlds," one said, "but never have we seen life so deeply woven. Here, the prey is not prey. The hunters are not only hunters. Everything depends on everything else. The balance is stronger than any single creature." The younger hunters frowned, confused. They had always believed power belonged to the strongest alone, but Earth was showing them another path. The power of connection, the wolves one night. In the forests of the north, a group of Scifi tracked a human hunting band. They moved silently, hiding in shadows, expecting to see another simple display of skill. Instead, they saw wolves. The wolves ran beside the humans, not against them. Their steps matched, their eyes glowed with the same fire. When the humans moved left, the wolves moved right. When the humans raised their weapons, the wolves lowered their bodies to strike. The Scifi stared in disbelief. Never had they seen predators join hands with other predators. On every other world, hunters fought each other for dominance. Yet here, humans had turned predators into partners. "How is this possible?" a young hunter whispered. An elder answered softly, "Because humans do not hunt only for themselves. They share their lives with others. The wolves do not serve them. They walk together." The hunters fell silent. They understood then that the humans were not just powerful. They were something entirely new. They could bond with the wild itself. The sky above in the deserts, another group of Scifi saw humans riding with falcons. The great birds soared high, their sharp eyes searching the sands. When they found movement, they cried out, and the humans below understood instantly. Together they hunted as one. The hunters had no words for what they witnessed. On other worlds, flying creatures had been their enemies, always striking from above. But here humans turned even the skies into allies. "They do not just survive in their world," one elder said quietly. "They shape it. They guide it. They live within it." The ocean's gift near the coasts, the Scifi observed fishermen again, but this time they saw something even stranger. A pod of dolphins swam near the boats, circling and driving fish toward the nets. The humans called to them with sounds and gestures, and the dolphins answered with leaps and whistles. The hunters were stunned. To them, the ocean had always been hostile, a place of hidden danger. But to humans, even the ocean offered friendship. "Do you see?" an elder whispered. "This is why they are different. They do not rule with claws or with fear. They live with the world, and the world answers them." The meeting. The moment came when the Scifi and humans stood face to face, not as hunters and prey, but as beings studying each other. In a village at the edge of a river, the humans had gathered. Fires burned bright, and their children played close to the water's edge. When the Scifi approached, tall and dark, the humans did not flee. Instead, an elder human stepped forward. His hair was white, his body bent with age, yet his eyes were steady. He held no weapon, only a staff carved with symbols. Behind him, the younger humans stood in silence, their spears pointed toward the ground, not raised in fear. The Scifi leader stepped forward as well. He expected cries or anger, but there was none. The human elder simply looked at him, his gaze calm and deep, as if he were looking not at a monster, but at another living being. In that moment, the Scifi leader felt something stir inside. He had traveled across countless worlds. He had crushed beasts stronger than any human, but never before had he been looked at like this, with neither fear nor hatred, but with recognition. The human elder raised his hand slowly, palm open, a gesture of peace. The Scifi leader hesitated. His claws twitched, his mind wrestled with instinct. But then, for the first time, he lowered his head and touched his claw gently against the human's hand. There was no battle, no conquest, no surrender, only understanding. The elders truth back on their ships, the Scifi gathered in council. The elders spoke of what they had seen. On every world, we hunted alone. We believed strength was only our claws, our speed, our teeth. But here, strength is something greater. It is unity, it is respect, it is connection. They are fragile, one younger hunter said, and yet they are unbroken. They are fragile, the elder agreed, but perhaps that is their greatest power. Because they are fragile, they learn. Because they are fragile, they endure. And because they are fragile, they build bonds that even we cannot understand. Silence followed. Each hunter thought of the wolves, the falcons, the dolphins, the fire in the human's hands, the calm gaze of the human elder. Finally, the council leader spoke. We thought we were the apex predators of the galaxy, but we were wrong. The true apex is not the one who hunts alone. The true apex is the one who can stand with the world itself. And that is what these humans are. The return of fear as the council ended. Each Scythery felt something deep inside. It was the same feeling they had touched before, but now it grew stronger. Their chests grew tight, their hearts raced, their eyes darted to the shadows. It was fear, not the fear of claws or teeth, but the fear of facing something far greater than themselves. And yet within that fear was another feeling, respect. For the first time in countless generations, the Scythery bowed their heads, not in defeat, but in recognition. They had found a species that was not prey, not rivals, not even enemies. They had found the apex within humanity, the world that would not bow. As the Scythery ships prepared to leave Earth, the hunters looked down from the skies one last time. They saw the forests stretching endlessly, the oceans shining in the sun, the mountains standing tall, and the villages glowing with firelight. And they knew, with unshakable certainty, that this was no ordinary planet. This was no simple hunt. Earth was alive. Earth was powerful. Earth belonged to its people, and those people were not prey. The Scythery whispered among themselves a single word that had been forgotten for ages, now burning fresh in their minds. Respect, and with respect came something even more important. The decision never to hunt this world again. The Scythery had come to Earth as they had come to countless other worlds, confident, proud, certain of their own supremacy. But Earth had broken their certainty. They had witnessed something that no other world had ever shown them. They had met a species that stood not with claws, not with fangs, but with unity, knowledge, and courage. The humans had no armor, yet they were not weak. They had no wings, yet they touched the skies. They had no gills, yet they commanded the seas. More than that, they had turned even the beasts of their planet into allies. The Scythery now knew the truth. They had not found prey. They had found equals, or perhaps something greater. The departure. The time came when the Scythery decided to leave. Their ships, dark and silent, rose slowly from the forests, the plains, and the oceans where they had landed. They carried with them hunters who were no longer the same. Inside the command vessel, the council of elders gathered. Their golden eyes looked down at the blue planet one last time. For long minutes, none of them spoke. The silence itself was heavy, filled with memories of what they had seen. At last, one elder broke the silence. We came here seeking a hunt. Instead, we found ourselves hunted by a truth we could not deny. Another elder nodded slowly. On every world, fear was lost to us. But here, fear has returned. And with it, wisdom. The younger hunters sat quietly, their heads lowered. For the first time in their lives, they had felt small. For the first time, they had felt what their prey had always felt. The experience burned inside them, painful yet unforgettable. The fear. They carried fear was not something the Scythery had welcomed before. It had been seen as weakness, as failure. But now the elders taught the younger ones a new truth. Fear is not weakness, the council leader said. Fear is the teacher of survival. Fear is what keeps us alive. Without fear, we hunted without meaning. Without fear, we became empty. But now, Earth has given us back what we had lost. The younger hunters listened, their hearts heavy but open. They began to understand. Fear was not the end of pride. It was the beginning of respect. And so, as the ships climbed higher, the Scythery did not curse the humans. They honored them. The final meeting before leaving the planet's skies, one Scythery leader made a choice. He returned to the place where he had touched the hand of the human elder. Once again, the humans stood in their village by the river. The flames of their fires lit the night, and their children gathered close, curious but calm. The human elder was there too, standing tall despite his age. The Zitheri leader stepped forward. He did not carry his weapon. His claws were lowered. His posture was not one of conquest but of respect. The human elder met his gaze. Once again he raised his hand, open, steady, peaceful. And once again the Zitheri touched his claw gently against it. This time the Zitheri leader bowed his head. It was not the bow of defeat, but the bow of acknowledgement. "You are the true apex," he whispered in his own tongue, though the human could not understand the words. But perhaps in the silence of the moment, the meaning was clear. The human elder only smiled, his eyes calm and wise, as though he had known all along the journey home. When the Zitheri fleet left Earth, they did not roar away as conquerors. They drifted quietly into the stars, humbled and thoughtful. From orbit, they looked down one last time at the planet. Its clouds swirled white and soft. Its oceans shimmered deep blue. Its lands stretched wide with forests, deserts, and mountains. To the Zitheri, it no longer looked ordinary. It looked like a guardian. One younger hunter whispered, "It is only a planet," but an elder corrected him. "No, it is not only a planet. It is a world of life, a world of unity, a world of strength greater than claws. It is the home of humans, the true apex predators. And we will never forget it." The younger hunter lowered his head in silence. The stories of the hunters. As the fleet traveled back into the depths of space, the Zitheri began to tell their story. On every ship the hunters sat together, remembering what they had seen. They spoke of the crocodile in the river, patient and still. They spoke of the lions in the grass whose eyes shone like fire. They spoke of the wolves who ran beside humans, the falcons that soared above them, the dolphins that swam at their side. And most of all, they spoke of the humans themselves, fragile in body, yet unshakable in spirit. The young ones who had once mocked humans now sat in silence, their eyes wide. They had learned something they would never forget. Power is not only in strength. Power is in wisdom, in unity, in respect. The elders smiled sadly. Perhaps, one said, this was the lesson we were always meant to find, the return of respect. When the fleet finally reached their home world, the entire Zitheri people gathered to hear their hunter's tale. They expected another story of conquest, another tale of victory. But instead, the hunters told a story of humility. They spoke of a planet that had challenged them, not with weapons but with life itself. They spoke of humans, the fragile yet unbroken, who had stood against them without fear. At first, the crowd was silent. Then slowly the truth spread among them. For the first time in their long history, the Zitheri began to understand respect, not as weakness, but as strength. And in their hearts, they felt the old word once again: fear. But this time they did not run from it. They held it close as a reminder, the legacy of Earth years past. The Zitheri continued their journeys across the stars, but they were no longer the same. They no longer hunted recklessly. They no longer conquered for pride. Instead, they approached new worlds with caution, with patience, and with humility. Whenever the young hunters grew arrogant, the elders told them the story of Earth. They told of the humans who had no claws yet stood taller than any beast. They told of the world that moved as one, where sky, land, and sea all lived in balance. They told of the moment when the greatest hunters in the galaxy had bowed their heads in respect. And in every story, there was a lesson. True strength is not found in fearlessness, but in understanding fear, the planet that changed them. The Zitheri had once believed they were eternal hunters, destined to rule all others. But Earth had taught them a truth deeper than any hunt. They realized that the greatest predator is not the one who takes, but the one who protects. The greatest strength is not in claws or fangs, but in unity, patience, and wisdom. And so, even as they continued to explore the stars, Earth remained in their memories, a planet they would never dare to hunt again. The humans would never know the full weight of what they had done. To them, they had simply lived as they always had, working together, surviving, enduring. But to the Zitheri, it had been a revelation. The final word as the Zitheri leader looked out into the endless galaxy, he whispered softly to himself, "We feared nothing. But then we met the humans, and in them we found the fear we had lost. Not the fear of death, but the fear of respect. The fear that humbles us, The fear that teaches us, the fear that makes us remember what it means to live. And so, the story ended not with victory or defeat, but with wisdom. The galactic predators who had once feared nothing would forever carry with them the memory of Earth. A world alive. A world unbroken. A world of true apex predators.